Quick tag, you're it. The franchise tag, well, it's come and gone, and you can take a look here at the players that were under the tag this season. You got Brandon Scherff, Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, Cam Robinson, Marcus May. Another safety as well, Marcus Williams, down with the New Orleans Saints. For more, we'll welcome in CBS Sports senior NFL insider Jonathan Jones. And Jonathan, we'll start with the Tampa Bay Bucks. You look at Chris Godwin. Of course, here's a guy that's slated to make a lot of money this year. Not a lot of money on the cap for the Bucks, so they weren't able to go ahead and sign him. Why did this thing play out the way it did?
Yeah, it was one where that we were sort of anticipating and expecting. When I spoke with folks at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over this week, they were saying, listen, we did this with Shaq Barrett last year, that we just couldn't come to that agreement, but we obviously had a great season. We all know the magical season the Bucs had, and we're able to sign him to a long-term deal this past offseason. That is the hope that Tampa Bay has right now for Chris Godwin when they get to next offseason, if all goes well. Of course, he is a well-respected player within that locker room. I've heard from multiple people there that he is a beloved figure there in that locker room. Just 25 years old, one of the best route runners in the game today, a guy that Tom Brady very obviously trusts with the football, and a guy who played through a number of injuries last season as well, who, that earned him even more respect within that locker room. So it is well within the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' intentions to keep Chris Godwin on a long-term deal. Eventually, just when you look at the economics of bringing back all 22 starters, when you look at what Chris Godwin very likely wants to make, what he deserves to make in a long-term deal, and just the financial constraints that the reigning Super Bowl champions have right now, it just ultimately wasn't going to work out this season. And again, this is what we anticipated back in the spring when they slapped the tag on him. It has never really gotten gotten to loggerheads or anything like that. It's sort of been well understood that this was the likely outcome, and here we are today after the deadline. Chris Godwin still tagged in 2021.
Yeah, Chris Godwin will play under the franchise tag. Definitely one of the top 10 receivers in the league. Jonathan, that's a good thing for Allen Robinson if he gets some consistent quarterback play. I mean, you look at some of the quarterbacks that he's played with, Mitchell Trubisky and also Foles out there. Tell us about Allen Robinson.
Yeah, for whatever reason, the Chicago Bears organization does not value Allen Robinson like I would, like Allen Robinson does, like most people who watch football would. This is a guy who, yeah, sure, he cashed in on a 3-year, $42 million deal a couple of years ago, but he has been their best and most consistent offensive player each of the past 2 seasons. And as you mentioned, doing it with subpar play at the quarterback position, Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles there. And that's really the story of his career. You can even go back to the Jacksonville Jaguars and what he was able to do with Blake Bortles. Again, ever since his ACL tear several years ago, he has been a model of consistency. And again, he's on the good side of 30. He still has a couple of very strong years left. You can make an argument he's in the middle of his prime, maybe a couple more years left to make some fantastic money. But if this is a guy who's going to get 1,000, 1,100 receiving yards for your team, getting passes thrown to him by quarterbacks who are below average in the NFL, just imagine what he's going to be able to do in an offense with a healthy running back, and then, of course, a prodigious talent in Justin Fields, where folks are already there in Chicago talking about how they can't wait to see him get out onto the field in training camp. So excited to see what he's going to be able to do with better, more competent quarterback play in 2021.
Yeah, A-Rod, it's amazing what the former Penn State University player has been able to do in Chicago. Washington guard Brandon Scherff will play under the tag for a second straight season. We know what happened with Kirk Cousins when he did the same thing many years ago down in the D.C. area. Does he have a long-term future with the Washington football team, Jonathan?
Well, they're not going to tag him a third time next season. I can tell you that. The tag goes up substantially in 2022. And so for whatever reason, again, they just couldn't come to an agreement. And obviously he wants Joe Tooney-like money on a long-term deal. Ultimately, you have to be concerned with what is the positional value here as a guard. Not really a tackle, but you still want to be able to lock in fantastic offensive linemen. And the Washington football team understanding their economics, understanding that, yeah, okay, well, we can tag him and it's okay. We don't really need the cap space just yet. They would need that in 2022 and beyond as they continue to climb that ladder of relevancy and being a contender, not just in the NFC East, which they won, but in the NFC at large. I don't know if they're going to wind up getting to a long-term deal next offseason. It would feel like if they were going to do it, it would have happened at some point over the past year and a half. Plus, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic threw a wrench into everyone's plans and certainly threw a wrench into Washington football team's plans as it relates to team building against the salary cap. Now, Brandon Scherff, very well within his rights to want all the money that should be owed to him. If the Kansas City Chiefs can pay Joe Thuney like the highest paid guard in NFL history, why can't the Washington football team? And that's a fine, fair argument. So again, both sides trying to figure out what the value is. I won't be surprised if Brandon Scherff is playing somewhere else in 2022 because again, if you were really going to get a deal done, the two sides, I believe, over the course of these past two franchise tags would have gotten a deal done.
Yeah, definitely one of the best guards in the NFL. That number probably going to be around $70 or $80 million. Jonathan, before we let you go, we learned on Thursday Tom Brady played and won Super Bowl 55 with a torn MCL, suffered that injury back in his last season with the Patriots in 2019. Jonathan, your reaction to the news coming out is what, my friend?
Well, it just continues the legend of Tom Brady, as if he needed to, make his argument for GOAT any greater. I think he's far and away number one, and we all know that. But a hobbled GOAT this past season, and we knew it. You could see him out there, and okay, he's 43 years old, but he was moving around pretty well in his 40s. He very clearly had some lower body issue last season. I thought that was pretty easy to tell during the fall, and then of course. Several months ago, it came out that he had pretty serious, he said, knee surgery. And we saw him with a sleeve around his knee throughout many off-season videos. In fact, one recent one that he just posted along with his trainer, Alex Guerrero, he did not have the sleeve on the knee. So I took that as a good sign the other day. So interesting that this news does come out that it is officially a torn MCL, that he was able to play on it. And what does it mean for this preseason? I talked with someone down in Tampa, and listen, Tom's going to want to play. Bruce Arians is obviously going to try to hold back his veteran quarterback, the guy who's going to get them back to the promised land, as they all hope. So we're going to see what that sort of tug of war winds up being. I can absolutely imagine that Tom Brady's not going to be a full go every single day at training camp. I don't know how much we're going to see of him in the 3 preseason games, but everything is going to be ramping up to the Week 1 contest, the season opener against the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, ask the honey badger. Jonathan didn't really bother his mouth last year. The woofing and the chirping by Tom Brady is legendary, as we all know. And I can't forget the avocado ice cream. Avoid the strawberries. That's the key, right?
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.